In a massive game against Everton, Newcastle were unable to conquer.
Pain, suffering, death, I fear.
So from the real truth behind Newcastle's form in the league to a massive contract agreement, as per join us as we'll break it all down.
Let's go!
So we learned or were reminded that Newcastle need real quality. Not depth for the sake of numbers, not promising projects who might come good in 2 or 3 seasons, but immediate, undeniable quality that lifts the level of the starting 11. At the moment, there are simply too many areas where the side feels functional rather than formidable. The ambition of the club has grown, but parts of the squad have not grown with it. Up front, the issue is glaring. Strikers like Osula and Wissa have struggled to impose themselves consistently, and too often they feel peripheral rather than decisive. There is a difference between working hard and making a difference, and Newcastle need forwards who turn control into goals. When chances fall, they must be converted. When games are tight, someone must step forward. Right now, upgrades are not optional, they are necessary. Creativity is another glaring weakness. Newcastle lack a genuine number 10, a player capable of operating between the lines and unlocking stubborn low blocks. Too many matches follow the same pattern: possession without incision, crosses without conviction, pressure without penetration. Opponents are comfortable sitting deep because they know there is no elite creator capable of splitting them open with one pass. Without that kind of technical imagination, Newcastle will continue to dominate territory, but struggle to dominate scorelines. The injury to Bruno Guimaraes has only amplified these issues. His absence is a massive blow, not just emotionally but structurally. Guimaraes has attempted 879 passes under pressure in the Premier League this season, and not one has been graded as unsafe. That statistic alone illustrates how crucial he is: calm, secure, intelligent. He dictates rhythm and absorbs pressure without panic. When he is missing, the midfield loses composure, and the entire team becomes more vulnerable in transition. Jacob Ramsey has been one of the few bright sparks recently, scoring or assisting in consecutive league matches for the first time since 2023. He brought drive and directness at a time when Newcastle desperately needed it. Yet even that momentum was short-lived. After an unconvincing first half in which the same 11 re-emerged after the break, Ramsey's sudden illness halted any hope of building consistency. As Newcastle prepared to kick off towards the Gallowgate end, he began retching. The referee signalled for treatment, and the club doctor quickly indicated he should be withdrawn. Joe Willock replaced him before play resumed, but the damage was done. Newcastle lost arguably their most effective player on the day, and a midfield already weakened by the injuries to Guimaraes and Lewis Miley suddenly looked threadbare. That moment encapsulated the wider problem. There is not enough genuine quality in reserve to absorb setbacks. If 1 or 2 key players are missing, the level drops sharply. That is not the profile of a side pushing for Europe. The performance against Everton was particularly revealing. Embarrassing does not quite capture it. Everton were content to let Newcastle have the ball, confident that possession alone would not hurt them. They trusted that without a pure creator, Newcastle would struggle to carve out clear opportunities. At the other end, they knew defensive lapses would eventually present chances. It was a calculated approach, and it worked. Newcastle had the ball but lacked purpose, and when moments arrived to defend with conviction, they faltered. Defensively, the problems are systemic. This is not about one error or one unlucky deflection. Newcastle have kept just 3 clean sheets in 29 matches in all competitions, and only 2 in 21 Premier League fixtures. They have conceded at least twice in each of their last 4 home games. That is not the record of a team built on solidity. A dozen matches have passed since their last shutout, and even teams like Qarabag have managed to breach them home and away. The goal against Everton highlighted multiple failings. The marking for Branthwaite's opener was poor, lacking both awareness and aggression. Then, only 2 minutes after Newcastle equalised, Nick Pope handed the advantage back. McNeil's long-range effort was speculative and positioned only slightly to Pope's right, yet the goalkeeper parried rather than secured it. His reaction was slow, and no defender reacted quickly enough either, allowing Beto the simplest of finishes into an empty net. Pope has also been partly culpable in other recent concessions, including the goal in Baku and Manchester City's opener at the Etihad. When errors become recurring themes rather than isolated incidents, questions are inevitable. There is a legitimate argument that he may need a breather. However, the complication is that Aaron Ramsdale failed to convince during his own spell in the side when Pope was previously injured. Rotating between two uncertain options is not a solution. Recruiting a goalkeeper was already a priority for the upcoming summer window, and with each passing match, that need becomes more urgent. Across Europe, elite goalkeepers are winning games for their teams. Gianluigi Donnarumma regularly rescues his side in high-pressure moments. David Raya's composure has been central to Arsenal's defensive resilience. Even Jordan Pickford has produced match-defining saves for Everton, including one in this very fixture. Newcastle, by contrast, are not being bailed out. They are being punished. Ultimately, the pattern is clear. Newcastle lack decisive quality in attack, creativity in midfield, and reliability in defense. When ambition rises but performance stagnates, scrutiny follows. If the club truly intends to compete at the highest level again, recruitment must be bold and strategic. Marginal improvements will not suffice. The foundation requires strengthening, not in one area, but across the spine of the team. Kieran Trippier's performance against Everton summed up a wider issue. Defensively, he was steady enough, positionally sound and rarely exposed in 1v1 situations. But the sharpness and quality that once made him such an attacking weapon were missing. His delivery from set pieces, previously a genuine asset, lacked precision and menace. Corners failed to beat the first man, free kicks drifted harmlessly, and the sense that something decisive might happen when he stood over a dead ball has faded. It feels increasingly as though time is catching up with him. The sooner Tino Livramento returns to full fitness, the better for Newcastle's balance and energy on that flank. Yet even with Tino available, uncertainty lingers about the long-term stability of that position and whether succession planning has been handled decisively enough. The reality is that the defense requires more than minor adjustments. It needs a structural overhaul. In truth, the refresh may need to extend beyond the backline. Expectations at Newcastle have risen dramatically in recent seasons, but certain players who were pivotal in the club's resurgence are now struggling to match the new standard. Some have aged, others have plateaued, and a few appear to have reached their ceiling. Ambition has accelerated faster than evolution within parts of the squad, and that gap is becoming increasingly visible on the pitch. Accountability does not stop with the players. Eddie Howe has been central to Newcastle's progress and deserves recognition for the transformation he engineered. However, recruitment in recent windows has brought in players such as Voltemade, Wissa, Ramsey, Ramsdale. While none arrived amid overwhelming criticism, it is now the manager's responsibility to mold them into a coherent, competitive unit. It is not solely about who is signed, it is about maximizing what is available. Systems must evolve, weaknesses must be masked, and confidence must be rebuilt. Tactical flexibility and in-game management are under the spotlight as much as individual errors. Newcastle's home form was once the bedrock of their revival. St James's Park was a cauldron, a place where opponents arrived braced for intensity and often departed empty-handed. Recently, that foundation has cracked. The cheers that once drove momentum have given way to frustration, and the boos at half-time and full-time have not felt unjustified. For the first time under Howe, Newcastle have lost 3 consecutive Premier League matches on Tyneside. That statistic alone is sobering for a club that prides itself on making the journey north uncomfortable for visiting teams. Now, it is Newcastle who appear uneasy. Aston Villa, Brentford and Everton have all travelled to the Gallowgate end and collected maximum points, each scoring at least twice. The defeat to Brentford was particularly alarming, prompting what felt like a necessary reset. That response initially appeared positive, with 3 wins from 4 across all competitions. Yet the Everton performance signaled regression rather than resilience. Momentum, once regained, has slipped again. The away record only compounds the issue. While there were notable victories at Tottenham Hotspur, Aston Villa and Qarabag following the Brentford setback, Newcastle's Premier League away form remains fragile. 3 wins and 7 defeats on the road illustrate a side that is too easily unsettled outside its comfort zone. That inconsistency heaps pressure on home fixtures, demanding near perfection at St James's Park. With home form now deteriorating, the consequences are stark. Newcastle are paying a steep price for porous defending and poor game management. Leads are not protected with authority, transitions are mishandled, and composure evaporates in critical moments. European qualification, once a tangible ambition, risks slipping into the realm of distant aspiration unless swift corrective action is taken. The margins at the top end of the Premier League are unforgiving, and Newcastle cannot afford prolonged vulnerability. Ultimately, the equation is straightforward. Newcastle must respond, and they must do so immediately. A victory against Manchester United on Wednesday is not merely desirable, it is essential. It would not solve every structural flaw, but it would stem the psychological drift and restore belief. In seasons defined by fine margins, defining moments emerge. For Newcastle, this feels like one of them. Still, there's an understandable anxiety among the Newcastle United fan base that this summer could bring significant upheaval. After last year's Alexander Isak saga, the club will be determined to avoid another prolonged transfer narrative overshadowing preparations for the 2026-27 campaign. With speculation already surrounding the futures of Tino Livramento, Sandro Tonali and Malik Chow, it feels inevitable that Newcastle are bracing for another turbulent window. However, one key figure appears firmly secured. According to Sky Sports' Keith Downey, Anthony Gordon remains under contract until 2030, with 4 years still left on his deal. The forward signed what was described as a long-term extension 16 months ago, and it has now been clarified that the agreement runs straight through to 2030, when he will be 29. That contract length places Newcastle in a position of real strength. Long-term deals provide leverage, especially when dealing with clubs perceived to have greater financial muscle. Should bids arrive from the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool or Manchester United, Newcastle would control the situation entirely. Gordon's value has grown considerably since his £40 million move from Everton. He has lifted the Carabao Cup, was named Newcastle's Player of the Season in the 2023-24 season, and has positioned himself firmly within England contention. Given his age, output and contract status, the club would likely demand a figure significantly above their original outlay. Yet Newcastle know from experience that prolonged transfer speculation can destabilize even the most committed players. The Isak episode demonstrated how media narratives linking players to so-called bigger clubs can create distraction and uncertainty. Eddie Howe addressed those concerns directly. Rather than dismissing the rumors outright, he focused on mentality and professionalism. He emphasized that speculation only truly matters when the transfer window is open, and that players must concentrate on performances in the meantime. Howe made it clear that everything they do on the pitch shapes their future, and that sustained high-level displays are the only appropriate response to outside noise. Importantly, he praised Gordon's recent form. Operating more centrally, the forward has shown tactical maturity and consistency. Howe noted that Gordon appears mentally strong and fully focused, precisely the response Newcastle require. He's got no time to look left or right. He's got to be fully focused on straight ahead in the next game and trying to be as good as he can be. I've been really impressed with him the last few weeks. I think he's been in a good place. Playing in a central position, I think he's done really well and we want him to continue that good form. In short, Gordon's contract until 2030 provides security. Newcastle hold the leverage. But as ever in modern football, long deals protect value. They do not eliminate interest. The real priority now is performance. And if Gordon continues on his current trajectory, the speculation will only intensify, but from a position where Newcastle remain firmly in control.